Welcome back to Irish Illustrated Insider. Today's episode features Irish Illustrated's Tim Priester to the bottom left of your screen and Football Scoop's John Bryce to the right. If you're merely listening to this podcast instead, Priester and Bryce, please do everyone a favor by just announcing your name right before you speak every single time you want to speak to ease it in for the readers. Now, if you don't want to do that, guys, you could quit and I will pay you $21,917 a day to go away because that's what's happening for James Franklin at State College.
See you later.
That's what I was hoping for. That is shocking, of course. It's not Penn State week, it's USC week. So before we get into our final game review of NC State forthcoming, we should talk about Marcus Freeman's press conference. And USC week, no one said this at the press conference, but it's true. It's also elimination week, Tim Priester.
That it is.
For both.
Yeah, probably for USC as well, I guess, but it's still the two loss threshold, but not for Notre Dame. Have to win. You're at home. You won 6 straight in a row in Notre Dame Stadium against USC, but a real challenging opponent. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I always have that since I was 8 years old. I have that feeling in my stomach when I think about USC's coming to town or I'm going out to see Notre Dame play USC. It's USC, and they're pretty good this year. I think they've come up with some answers. I know they have answers offensively because of everything that Lincoln Riley is capable of doing. Defensively, a little bit bigger along that defensive line, and I think, with a pass rush that they can generate with 4 guys. Look, I still think there are tackling issues on the back end for USC, which is usually the case, but I think they're better than they were last year. Danton Lynn now in his second year at USC, and he's a good defensive coordinator, and we figured that they would be better the second time around with him than the first time through last year.
JB, before we get into NC State, I think key takeaway, of course, from the Freeman press conference is not that Jaden Greathouse has been upgraded to questionable, along with Will Black and others, but that Ashton Craig is out for the season with a knee injury. Depth chart shows Joe Otting, Cam Herron, and Chris Terek. If anyone did not watch instant analysis, we discuss in depth how it could also be Sullivan Absher not listed. But still surprised, JB, that he wasn't listed. You never know how much effort goes into a paper depth chart, of course, though, as opposed to reality.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we don't know when Notre Dame got the depth chart information from Marcus Freeman. As much ball as Sullivan Absher has played for Notre Dame and continues to play on some of the special teams units, I would be stunned if he doesn't get some work at center this week, especially because we've seen him. We know that he truly is the utility man of the offensive line. He can play every single position, and we've seen him in practice work at every single position. And so you got to keep that flexibility because just as Ashton Craig went down in a snap this past Saturday, any one of those other players could also go down at any moment's notice. And so I get that. You want to try to have more than one person ready. But Joe Otting showed that he needs all the reps he can get this week. And as the point I made in instant analysis, this is not preseason camp where you've got 30 days to accommodate the absence of Charles Jagasaw. You don't even technically have 30 hours this week as allowed by the NCAA. You have the 20 hours. And so, CJ Carr, the competitor he is, the stories we've already heard about how often he's in the Goog, how early he beats people into the Goog, or how late he stays into the Goog. You can bet he will get extra work this week with Joe Otting. How much extra work, how much rapport, how much comfort, and how much is Joe Otting's command of the playbook?
I don't know if you saw the replay of Craig getting hurt. It was on the play where Pauling scored. I think it was it was a non-contact injury. It looked to me like he pulled up just by planting his left foot. Of course, it's the same knee that he injured last year. I saw it from the side and then from the back view, and I think he was just planting his foot, and before actual contact was made with him, he tore his ACL. You feel like hell for the kid because he is an NFL prospect, and now his season has been cut to 3 games, 2.5 games really last year, and now 6 games this year. It's just a real shame. It's only one positive that comes out of it is that he's not going to have such a good year that he'll be back next year for Notre Dame. But I don't like to even put it in those terms. He's a heck of a football player, and Notre Dame really needs him, but he's not going to be available this weekend.
Available, Jaden Greathouse, right thigh. Davante Smith is listed as questionable right calf. I had not heard last week that that would be an option this week, but that doesn't mean things haven't changed because Leonard Moore went from way totally out that we saw 1 week to playing football, so it is possible. Off of concussion protocol completely, but he is still questionable, would be Will Black. And guys, Cooper Flanagan still listed as questionable left Achilles. I think that's as we said, if he plays against USC, he better sit out 2 of the next 4 games because they do not want to use Cooper Flanagan does have a redshirt season available to him from playing his entire freshman and sophomore year. I would assume his first game will be red zone. We need an extra tight end. Here's Cooper Flanagan for 3 plays. Micah Gilbert out for the game, left hand. And of course, you mentioned Charles Jagasa. But before you do USC, guys, North Carolina State, Tim Priester, you said best defensive effort of the season. Marcus Freeman echoed that. I don't know if he read it when you said that, but he did echo that for you today. I said if NC State would have just stuck with the running game a little and those same numbers were there, this would have been the best defensive rush defense performance in decades by Notre Dame, considering Hollywood Smothers was the running back. But NC State did go away from the run in the second half.
I thought they did a sensational job of preventing cutbacks, taking away lanes to run through, especially for, in particular, Hollywood Smothers, who makes a living doing that. Every time he tried to cut back, it was not there. He had a 10-yard run. I think it was in the second half. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't feel like C.J. Bailey was as much of a running threat as Taylon Green from Arkansas was, but he still would take off and hurt you, and Notre Dame was prepared for that. And so I asked Marcus Freeman about that, and I think he essentially admitted that, that was a very conscious effort to prevent cutbacks, and they did a sensational job of doing that. I keep jumping ahead to USC. I think it'll be a little bit more difficult to prevent that against USC, even though their top 2 running backs are out. King Miller, Tim, you talked about him in the instant analysis. Good. He looks excellent. A walk-on football player that doesn't look anything like a walk-on football player. But Notre Dame comes into this with a really, really good foundation of playing good defense. The last 3 games against quality offenses, particularly NC State and Arkansas. I brought up about tackling Tuesday. That was mentioned in the broadcast, and that's something that Chris Ash liked to do and reintroduce or incorporate it into practice, and they're doing it. They're playing better defensive football. They're tackling better. The secondary is more aggressive. They are, fortunately, Notre Dame's defense is playing at a high level with USC coming to town.
And to your point about the job they did against NC State, TP, I think it's very significant to note not only did they swarm to the ball, they were really good in denying yards after the catch overall. They were really good in denying yards after contact in the running game. Bailey and Smothers each had a 10-yard run. They had 2 receivers record a catch of 25 or more yards, and that was it. So the chunk play that had been such an Achilles heel for Notre Dame, particularly in the opening 2 losses, was coincident with it being the best defensive performance. They go hand in hand, and the Notre Dame defense really cut down on big plays in the throw game and tackled incredibly well and didn't allow a lot of yards after contact on the ground game.
And I thought Notre Dame's defense did a great job. Maybe it's a combination, but I thought they did a great job of making C.J. Bailey less impactful than he had been. He only completed like 57% of his passes, and he was completing almost 20% more than that. I think he succumbed a little bit to nerves too. He had opportunities downfield. In fact, Dave Doran, I caught a little bit of Dave Doran's post-game press conference, and he bemoaned the fact that there were some deep balls that Bailey missed on, and that, all it would have taken was completing a couple of those, and that could have changed the complexion of the game, especially since, NC State hung around for so long until Notre Dame put some stuff together offensively and defensively in the third quarter. But Notre Dame made C.J. Bailey play worse than he is, and I thought C.J. Bailey made C.J. Bailey play worse than he is too.
He did throw one of the greatest passes of all time on the non-catch that was ruled a catch, though. Holy cow, that's one of the best deep out passes I have seen. Of course, it was not actually a catch, but that's not C.J. Bailey's fault. Much of Marcus Freeman's press conference also included the goal to go and short yardage woes. Those are part of my questions as well. When you're taking anything away from the NC State game that was a negative, besides one C.J. Bailey pass over Dallas Golden, it was not only that Notre Dame is challenged in short yardage situation. The plan seems a bit scattershot. And I asked him if under center, what the challenges of just simply being under center. I understand one of them is CJ Carr is not a big guy. He is probably not used to quarterback sneaking. It is an art. You have to stick your head in there. You have to have leg drive. You have to have power. You have to have confidence in the snap. They now have a different center, of course, for that. But Freeman said if we thought going under center would solve things, we would go under center. I don't think it's happening this week, unless it's Sullivan Absher and they have somebody maybe besides CJ Carr taking that snap, guys.
And Tim, I mean, those were your questions. You asked about Jabron Payne, which I thought was a legitimate question since, when he's been on the field here the last couple of weeks, he looks pretty explosive. But Marcus Freeman doesn't think that's an option with
I asked because he was the short yardage guy ahead of Audric Estime in 2023. He had 10 third down conversions. Jabron Payne, 10 third down conversions running the ball. Nobody's coming close to that this year, including Jeremiah Love. And I am not saying Jeremiah Love should not be in the field on the game for any reason. But sometimes guys have a knack for getting a yard. Jabron Payne had a knack for getting a yard. Maybe Jeremiah Love thinks I can get 6 yards on this 3rd and 1 as opposed to a yard. Maybe he has so much in his toolbox, as I was talking with Drew Mentok on the walk out today, it's just not ingrained that I am going to get 1 yard through the B gap no matter what happens on this handoff. Absolutely everything is happening right here. I think Jabron Payne had that in 2023.
And Payne is already redshirted, as we know, and he's appeared in all 6 games this year, primarily on special teams, so we know he's not redshirting this year. Again, though, we've heard Jawan Sider say like he is primarily going to feed 2 backs, and we saw it last year at length when he was at Penn State, and those 2 guys were the overwhelming majority of the offensive workload in the ground game for Penn State, and now we're seeing the same hold true with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, but clearly the only lingering knock on Notre Dame's offense is the short yardage woes, and they continue to show themselves. I think it might have been Pete Sampson who laughed and said, if you're Notre Dame, take a delay of game penalty so you have 3rd and 6 instead of 3rd and 1 because you're better off. So, and if it wasn't Pete, I'm giving Pete credit. So.
Hey, Tim, I thought you brought up something interesting in instant analysis that again, people don't want to hear it because when Notre Dame does something well, it's because Notre Dame did something well. And when Notre Dame does something poorly, it's because Notre Dame did something poorly. But that's really not the full reality of football. And so Marcus Freeman brought up the fact that a couple of these short yardage plays, the opposing team made the right call, made the better call over Notre Dame did, and that's that's part of how plays fail. Sometimes when you don't execute, and that's always the emphasis because it's your team, but they got outfoxed a couple times too.
The kicker kicked, right, guys? Noah Burnett. I believe we finished Thursday's podcast by saying Noah Burnett has to kick because he's got to kick against USC. Well, he not only hit the 34-yarder that he absolutely has to make, but a 48-yarder. I think people have forgotten that it was 7-7, and the crowd was losing its mind over bad officiating when Noah Burnett drilled a 48-yarder to end that half in a 10-7 lead. That is huge news. The biggest news would be if his hip feels just as good this coming Saturday.
Yeah, and we said he didn't need to just kick a 34-yarder again. We needed to see him, and it wasn't art, except when it goes through the uprights, it's art every time. And so that was an abstract painting with a direct result.
Again, from the press box, the more this sports writer ages, the more difficult it is to see from the ninth floor. And when I watch
see the field goals at all.
Yeah,
to be fair.
well, I know
you
don't see the angle. But what I didn't even see. I didn't even think it was an end over end kick.
No, I didn't think so either.
Live, and then I saw the TV version. It's like, okay, he drove that thing, and it was end over end, and it caught the corner. But that was that was a hell of a kick because he didn't get all of it. He didn't hit it the way he wanted to. He certainly didn't get a ton of elevation. He was fortunate to clear the line of scrimmage of outstretched arms, but that was absolutely huge. And the 34-yarder was as well. And that's exactly what we said. He needed to have success. Now, I can virtually guarantee you that he did not come out of Saturday's game with that hip feeling good again, because, I'm watching him in pregame and he's nice and easy. He's kicking them from 50 plus, but then you get in a game and the competitive nature of it and the way that an athlete's going to gear up for it, that's going to impact you physically. So I would imagine he starts the week maybe a little bit slowly again, but really positive that he was able to go 2 for 2. He's 5 for 5 of the year. He's having a good year. He just needs the volume.
Notre Dame obviously had 4 sacks. That means I have them cited for 9, maybe 10 run stuffs. That is actually a very good day considering 29 rushes. Is that what 28 rushes in the game? That's crucial because Notre Dame, I think staying ahead of the chains, obviously, if USC, we're jumping forward to get USC again, I shouldn't say that, but Notre Dame was able to keep NC State behind the chains, a lot of third and long situations because they're making plays at scrimmage, if not behind scrimmage. I know we're all focusing on TFLs. I did not write down TFLs a lot, but there's a lot of tackles within a yard of scrimmage, 2 weeks in a row. I think it's a crucial development.
No, it really is. And I think it's, again, never one thing. I think Traore is impacting the run, the run game and the pass rush. You're getting consistency. Now, like whoever they're shuffling through a defensive tackle, and it's a lot of guys, they're getting consistency. Elijah Hughes, again, steps up. It seems like Jason, they've been starting Jason Onye, and he's good in that first series. I'm not sure how much he does after that, but he's the guy to choose to start for the opening series, and I think he's done some good things. I think Rubio is still set. So yeah, look, it's never one thing; it's a bunch of things, and I think collectively. And then you mentioned Tim in instant analysis. Drake Bowen played a great game.
He did.
From the second level. So they've got the defense this is right where you want the defense to be. Again, I know I'm going to be talking about USC's offense all week because that's what I do. And when I see really quality offense or defense, I don't care which team it is, it excites me because it's quality football. This is a good offense they're taking on this week.
Well, and obviously this game has a little bit of extra meaning for Elijah Hughes. And the great thing for Notre Dame is that he's playing his best ball of his young Notre Dame tenure, and they get to continue to increase his role this year and then welcome him back next year. That's a huge, that's probably an underrated win for Notre Dame in what it's done in the transfer portal. It was so significant to get Hughes because he had multiple years remaining in his collegiate career. That was just absolutely significant, and they need somebody they can build around up there or that they can pencil in and know that is reliable, not only for the remainder of this year, but moving into next year as well.
Segment 1 was brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame in Elkhart, Indiana. In addition to the museum and various exhibition halls, the campus is open to the public for free camping and is less than an hour from Notre Dame's campus. No reservations required. Whether you're looking to learn more about the history of recreational vehicles in the Kindlen Library or simply for a cost-effective, interesting place to stay on your family road trip, the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame can provide exactly what you're looking for. We'll be back with segment 2, Burning Up the Boards. With football season in full swing, I've been looking to find the best deal on Notre Dame tickets, both for family and friends, but also as a memorable gift idea. That's why I want to offer the sponsor of today's Burning Up the Boards segment, SeatGeek, a huge shout out. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Whether you're an Irish fan looking for a ticket to this week's clash with USC, or any of college football's season-defining matchups down the road, SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use Irish10, that's all capital letters in the number 10, for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. 10% off any tickets with the promo code Irish10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. Our first question comes from Mother Tucker. I said that properly. Remember back in camp when there were reports of poor red zone performance? Seems like a long time ago, but it looks like things have not progressed. Guys, I totally forgot about that. That is how we ended I think it was the Penn practice, hearing about an 0 for 8 red zone performance.
Yeah, but they were very good for the first 4 games. I
Yeah,
mean, they went into last week in the top 10 in red zone touchdown percentage. But, that kind of stuff rears its ugly head at certain points. And again, give credit to the last two opponents for doing a nice job of defending it. But yeah, was that was real. We were asked a lot about what we're hearing out of camp, what's real and what's camouflage. It was real, and look, it's up to Mike Denbrock to. He's got to win. He's got to win some of these one-on-one decision-making battles.
And the thing also in camp was not just red zone struggles, but Notre Dame was turning the ball over. And so giving the ball away, particularly. And so you're frustrated if you're Notre Dame, especially as I think Tyler James noted that Notre Dame's 3 for 10 with its first team offense on fourth down attempts this year. Marcus Freeman believes very strongly in going forward on fourth down. I know you could have taken probably a couple of surefire field goals in Saturday's game and maybe reassess things moving forward. And he said, look, once again, he made reference today, like, I know insanity doing the same thing over and over again. We have to get it fixed. We have to get better. I'll continue to evaluate it. Sometimes it's a gut feel, sometimes it's analytics, but he likes going for it. I think his team really relishes that challenge. They just have to execute those challenges much better moving forward.
Shout out to Priester, who said before the so not the 4th and 1, obviously, the other fourth down, you said, by the way, I would kick this field goal.
Yeah. I mean, and they ended up going up 10-7 anyway because of the change of possession. The half hour of bad decisions and replays. But I just, Freeman's aggressive with it. It's worked really well. It worked really well en route to getting the national championship game last year. So, I don't like to second guess that kind of stuff. I just thought that was, considering the struggle, it's 7-7, take the lead going into halftime. And then, as soon as the ball was snapped and you start to get, that was when Sebastian Harsh really kind of forced Carr's hand by pushing him, with his pressure. And as soon as you see that, something bad is probably going to happen. With Riley Leonard, he might be able to get away from that kind of push off the edge, but you don't have that with CJ Carr. I tweeted out that's the byproduct of, that's the trade-off between Riley Leonard and CJ Carr. CJ Carr is a prolific thrower of the football, but when you get in situations like that, you don't always have an answer. So I thought it was the best time to kick field goal. It ended up working out that way anyway with the line drive 48-yarder, but I just think every now and then the situation dictates to go ahead and take the certain points.
Next question from Frankencow. Guys, young Tim O'Malley thought about this a long time ago. That's why I included it. What did you make of Buckner and co. preparing to take another snap after the fake punt? I believe the lineup was QB, running back, 5 OL, 2 wide receivers on the field, plus obviously Vinci and Rendell. Is that fake evolving into a multi-play situation?
John?
Well, we know that Marty Biaggi has a number of plays in his arsenal that never saw the light of day last year, even though he was en route to guiding that team to being named Football Scoop's Special Teams Coordinator of the Year, and that's one of the longest running awards in the country, particularly for special teams coordinators. So, it would not surprise me because Tyler Buckner, can handle an entire offensive series, so why couldn't he handle multiple plays? And also, Notre Dame got exactly what it wanted out of it. They're forcing teams to react, and in this case, call a timeout because of something they showed out of special teams, and that's a win. That's another win. That may be not showing up on special teams efficiency ratings or some of the other metrics that are used, let alone the raw statistics. But that's a special teams win. That's special teams impacting the game in a positive manner for Notre Dame. There's a lot of talk out there about why couldn't Tyler Buckner potentially be an option in your short yardage woes? Because again, he does have that dual threat ability. He has operated an offense, not Denbrock's offense per se, but he has operated an offense for Notre Dame before. And those are definitely things to think about. And when Marcus Freeman reiterates the insanity line, that he's exploring and examining everything he can to find answers for Notre Dame's few offensive issues that it does have.
And guys, the timeout is great because you make a team use a late quarter timeout. But as long as Tyler Buckner runs for 4 yards on 2nd and 6, then you can reevaluate and say, okay, we'll sub out Rendell, Vinci, and Buckner and go from here. And then the opponent gets to substitute as well. But if Tyler Buckner runs for 7 yards on that play, you don't even need to sub out at that point. You still get another timeout being called. For my whole life, before people went for it on 4th down, Priester, I always thought every time you come up short on 3rd and 1, just line up. It's okay to line up and make them call timeout and go. If not, you call timeout or you take a 5-yard delay a game penalty from your own 50 and punt it better anyway. Like, why not force the issue in those situations? It's great to see how aggressive they are on those in that way.
Yeah, my initial reaction when I saw that Buckner was still out there was cool. They're going to branch off of what they just did. I thought, oh, great, they got a variation. So yeah, I mean, you got to trust Tyler Buckner. He's obviously been in that situation before. He's a strong runner. He is a short yardage option for you, obviously, whether it's in punt formation or, James Rendell kind of moved up to the slot and didn't give much of an effort to throw a block. I mean, for crying out loud, dude.
He's big enough, huh? You want that?
Yeah, I mean, come on, but no, that was my initial reaction. Like, cool, they got an offshoot off of that. Go for it.
Two-parter here. The second part's for JB. Ever to Excel asks first, what options does Notre Dame have when it comes to the abysmal level of recruiting in the abysmal level of officiating in the ACC? Why are officials conference affiliated in the first place, despite clear conflicts of interest? And Martin Evenflow adds, has there been any talk of changing conference officials just to NCAA officials? He offers that the putrid officiating in the ACC and SEC this weekend highlights why there should be no conference affiliated officiating.
Yeah, I'll start with the first part of that being that the fact of the matter is the Big Ten and the SEC pay a lot more. So you don't have uniform officials because right now the best officials, and I'm not trying to impugn anyone, but the best officials want to be in the ACC in the SEC and the Big 12. And when I tell you that they pay better, it's not insignificant. I think that the SEC and the Big Ten, I was told this summer because I asked about this and had long discussions about this when I was at the DFO meetings down in Frisco at Dallas Cowboys headquarters. And the Big Ten and the SEC are paying $6,200, $6,500 per official per game, plus per diem, plus travel expenses. The Big 12 and the ACC, I'm told, are more like $3,500 to $4,200. That's not insignificant, especially over the balance of a season. I mean, if you're a ref and you get to work 14 weeks, that's an extra 30 grand plus different per diem rates and different travel expenses and things of that nature. There is talk about it. I think that there is talk about having just a single college football referees association, the same way that you have the NFL referees association. The problem is that it's not a full-time job for virtually any single one of these guys. And until that becomes the case, it's going to be hard to make it just where you have those guys. Now, I would note Notre Dame has to use more ACC officials because of its contract with the ACC, but typically the visiting team is able to specify, like Boise State could have had Mountain West Conference officials here in theory, or USC could request Pac-12 officials this week, just as Notre Dame last year could have had ACC officials. I don't have that box score in front of me to remember where last year's crew was from, but if I'm not mistaken, Texas A&M had SEC officials last year, and then Notre Dame had ACC officials inside Notre Dame Stadium this year. So there are a number of those things. It makes a lot of sense. I'll say this, my boss at Football Scoop doesn't love this phrase. I like it. Don't bring logic to an idiot fight. And this whole discussion is a little bit of an idiot fight right now because there are issues with officiating. I talked at length about it on Sunday's Football Scoop podcast. And I'll leave you as frustrated as you are with the officiating from Saturday's Notre Dame game. And when you rewatch that, I can understand not wanting to overturn what you ruled on the field for the reception that wasn't a reception, or the interception that damn sure was an interception based on every angle I saw. I can't understand picking up the flag on Malachi Fields. There's not a part of me that understands, unless and again, this is where we could use hearing from the officials, unless they ruled that Malachi Fields stepped out of bounds and had not reestablished himself on that back line and therefore could not be interfered with. And if that's the case, and I think when you look at it, Malachi Fields does step out of bounds. If that was the case, they should have specified on the announcement that the flag was picked up and just say there could not be pass interference on the play because the receiver stepped out of bounds. Then everybody at least understands better. But having said all that, the Auburn-Georgia game, the SEC should be issuing comments today. It's one of the most heinous officiating jobs I've ever seen. And this is the stat I used on the Football Scoop podcast. This is the stat I'll use here. Auburn at home was penalized for approximately 25 more yards total than Georgia had rushing yards. Let me say that again. Auburn had like 104 penalty yards, and Georgia had 79 rushing yards. We know how that game turned out.
Man, oh man.
Officiating is extremely difficult.
It's incredibly difficult.
It's extremely difficult, and I know, I've said that before, and it's an extremely difficult thing to do. Having said that, I mean, I thought it was interesting that Terry McCauley, who was not at the game,
right,
weighed in on Twitter to say that the fact that they didn't overrule that completion to Terrell Anderson was the worst mistake that he'd seen of the season. And I'm going to say it one more time because I probably won't have an opportunity to say it again after this. There has been replay in college football for 20 years, and that is never a completion. It's never been a completion. It wasn't 20 years ago or any point along the way. The ball was loose. He didn't have control. The field helped him make the catch. It is unbelievable that you could rule that or you could uphold that call. That's never been a catch. It never should be. It should never be again. Move on to a question from Aerofan 624. How much credit to the defensive improvement is on Chris Ash having a better feel for his players and packages versus Freeman having a bigger hand in defensive game planning?
I'm going very heavy with Chris Ash having a better feel for his players and packages. And I would like to point out usage of Drake Bowen at the end of that game against Texas A&M, because I pointed that out not in hindsight, but right away. Marcus Freeman also saying, well, I don't know if it was between Purdue, it could have been between Purdue and Arkansas. So it was between Arkansas and Boise State. We shouldn't be asking players to do things that they're not at their best at. I think that was Marcus Freeman's influence here. Like, whatever paring down was, however we want to say it, whatever words you want to use for bring the scheme down a little bit, I think Chris Ash had time to get used to his players. And you got to see them out there competing too. He probably asked some guys to do stuff they couldn't do.
Yeah, I'm going to borrow from Marcus Freeman again and say as much as they're marrying their defensive front with their coverage, I think it's Chris Ash marrying up better knowledge of the defensive personnel along with Marcus Freeman's influence. I've had it indicated to me that Marcus has been quite engaged in the last couple of weeks and quite involved with the defense. So I do think that's significant. And look, with the exception of a Devontae Smith or a Dallas Golden, who have been playing significant roles for you, and they're in their first years in the program, Marcus Freeman should know the defensive personnel better than Chris Ash, and he does. And so I think it's, I don't know, because I'm not in the building to tell you it's 51% this way and 49% the other way. I don't have any doubt in my mind Chris Ash better understands his personnel.
Yeah.
I also just know how emphatically I've been told the last 10 days or so that Marcus Freeman's been very much involved.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that don't want to give Chris Ash credit for it because of the decision making that cost them early in the season. But I would look at this as Marcus Freeman's significant influence after the Purdue game. But I don't think Freeman's he's going into meetings each week now telling Chris Ash what to run. I don't think that's Marcus Freeman. Is he in those meetings and having a greater influence? He should. He's the head coach. But look, if you're gonna blame Chris Ash for the problems early on, you better give him credit. I mean,
that's how I feel. You have to give him credit.
This is an accomplished defensive coach how many people have sworn by Chris Ash? Why is that? You just making that up, or is it legitimate? I think it's legitimate. I want to give him credit. Marcus Freeman, all the credit in the world after Purdue. I think we all said Marcus Freeman's got to get involved here, and whatever needs to be done, they need to cut things. They need to cut things down. That's why you don't fire coordinators 3 games into their tenure at a school. Notre Dame would not be where they are right now if that had happened. That's irrational thinking. Marcus Freeman did exactly what he needed to do. He pulled it all together. He corrected problems, and they moved forward. And sure as hell has worked against 3 good offenses.
And if you want to be an Irish fan and say Chris Ash should have known the personnel better than he did by the time we were halfway through the Purdue game, I have no problem with that either. I'm just saying 2 things can be true. Maybe he didn't, and now he does more. Or if you're a Notre Dame fan and you want to give all the credit to Marcus Freeman, how about I just say, why did Marcus Freeman step in and make sure Chris Ash knew exactly what the hell he was doing with all these players? Because he knows all of them, and he's a defensive coach. Like, obviously, hindsight is 20/20. Something had to be different for the Texas A&M game and the Purdue game than it was. I don't know whose fault it was more. They're playing better now. If it was all Ash's fault at the beginning, then it's to Ash's credit now. It's always more than one thing, though. Always.
It's 11 on 11, Tim.
Yeah, it is.
It can't possibly be one thing.
Plus, Marcus is a great defensive mind. How much time do you think he was spending in Mike Denbrock's room? He should have been in Chris Ash's room the whole time. Really, that is where you could help the most. The final game plan is in Chris Ash's room. Double question. CMU Pens fan. Now we're getting into some USC. What do you think of USC's core outside of Lemon? Is it easy to slow down Lemon and trust your secondary with the others? And Blue Sky, this is a tough one, guys, because I don't know if they know where Lemon plays. Do we just put more on Lemon for the whole game? He plays in the slot, guys. Twice as many snaps in the slot as he has outside.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and Marcus was asked about that. Was that maybe that was not Tim O'Malley who asked? Maybe it was
Tyler James. Yep, it was Tyler James.
Tyler James. Yeah, it was one of the questions that I was hoping to ask either today or Thursday when they had a little bit more time over the balance of the week to game plan. Probably unpopular. I would put Leonard Moore on him as much as possible, including USC has never seen Leonard Moore line up and cover a guy in the slot. Chad Bowden, when he was here, never saw Leonard Moore line up and cover a guy in the slot. Why not, if you feel you really need to, line up Leonard Moore and let him cover Lemon in the slot? Not exclusively, because you need to do whatever it takes to ensure that Leonard Moore is fresh late in the game. And let's remember, this past week was his real first full game back from that injury after Texas A&M. So he's not, on the one hand, he's not played as many snaps as a lot of his other teammates. On the other hand, that means for as good as he is, he's not as in-game shape as some of his peers in the secondary. But I would want that matchup and roll the dice with a lot of the other guys against your DBs, wherever that be. I would want good on good as much as possible, especially if it's a close game. If it's 35-31 Notre Dame late and USC has the ball, I would make Leonard Moore cover Lemon no matter where he's at on the field.
I love the question from CMU Pens fan because I think that's a legitimate question. Mekhi Lemon has 44 receptions. The next wide receiver has 18 receptions, and that's Jacoby Lane, and he's more of a red zone kind of guy. Then it's the tight ends that you're going to have to deal with because Lake McRae and Walker Lyons have combined for 26 catches. They're prominent in the film in recent weeks. And then Tanuk Hines is their next leading wideout with 10 catches in 6 games. So I think it's a great question. It's legit. I don't think that USC's wideouts are anywhere near what they have been. Even last year, they had a bunch of transfers. But yeah, put Leonard Moore on Lemon. Look, they're still gonna. You can go ahead and do that. They're still gonna find ways to get the ball in his hands. Yeah. It may be behind the line of scrimmage, so you're not going to be able to keep the football out of his hands completely. But I like that idea. Obviously, you're going to run some zone coverages and mix things up so they can't dial in on it. But I think it's a great question, and I think it's a legitimate thing for Notre Dame to do. But just keep in mind that Lincoln Riley will still get the ball in his hands. It just may be behind the line of scrimmage.
The mixing it up, obviously, I mean, it's here we go again. It's more than one thing, but the other option here is if you trust Christian Gray as well at the field side, if it's not Lemon, if it's Jacoby Lane or anyone else. And Jacoby Lane, by the way, is the guy that beat Notre Dame last year. He had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah,
I mean,
big dude.
it was Jacoby
Tough,
Lane that had the touchdowns.
yeah, tough
But
matchup, big dude.
if you like Christian Gray one-on-one against Jacoby Lane, you definitely like Leonard Moore one-on-one against Jacoby Lane on the boundary. Then you have a scheme of zone you can play against the slot and Lake McRae because Lake McRae is he's gonna play a big role in this game, guys.
Yeah.
He doesn't has to be a volume receiver every game to be a guy that gets 6 targets this week. Like those things happen too. You know, you can find sometimes you could watch a whole game of Eli Raridon. You're like, man, they don't use their tight end. Then you go watch the last game with Eli Raridon. That's how it does work in offense. So as long as Leonard Moore is comfortable in the slot, there is if you hit that red zone, Leonard Moore is one-on-one in the slot for me. I don't know how much you can do it all over the field without compromising other things, but I like the idea. Whenever he is comfortable, there you go.
And Jacoby Lane didn't just torment Notre Dame a year ago. I think it's worth noting. I think he was top 5 in the nation in receiving touchdowns. He had 12, so he led the team last year in receiving touchdowns. He had a 60-yarder, I think it was, already this year against Purdue. He had a touchdown catch over the weekend in the win against Michigan. So he is a very, very capable number 2 option behind Lemon, and Lane would probably be a 1B option for a lot of teams around college football.
I guess the only issue before I move on to the next question, TP, is he is kind of the red zone guy, though, too. So you might want Leonard Moore on Jacoby Lane in the boundary of the red zone. I mean, he scored twice on Christian Gray in the red zone and once on Leonard Moore. He scored on Leonard Moore last year. Now, Moore got him once, too. But you know what? They have other players. That's the problem. They have other guys that can beat you.
They do. Yeah. And there's a absolute circus end zone catch by Lemon from this I think it was from this past week. Just a impossible, no way that he should make that catch, and he did. So again, they'll
make
find
plays,
ways.
right?
Yeah, guys make plays. He makes a bunch, but definitely Lane in the shadow of the goalposts is really, really dangerous. He's averaging 17.4 per catch on 18 grabs. Lake McCree's averaging 20.6, but he has 14 catches, and Walker Lyons has 12. So they are going to feed both tight ends in a passing game.
Like this question because of its specificity. Anytime you can get your friend into a question and we put it on there, it's good times. Shibe43, while watching the game from section 136 with fellow subscriber Irish1490, he brings up a great question I will now ask you guys. Does Notre Dame think they are something along the offensive line in regards to the run game that they actually are not? It feels like they think they can bring in everyone, bring it in tight, move people when it feels like the running backs a lot of time have to make something out of very little. I think it's a fantastic question, and it goes back to me hating tight formations against good teams. I feel like they think there's something they're not on the offensive line.
Well, I think there's always been, especially at Notre Dame, especially if you go back to the Lou Holtz era, there's always just been that perception that, damn it, we're going to line up, we're going to kick your ass, and you're going to like it. You're going to have to accept it. Maybe you can't always do that, especially when you have a quarterback that is virtually automatic on those little turnout routes, whether it's with Jeremiah Love or Jordan Faison. I think it's a good question because instead of beating your head against the wall, maybe play to your assets a little bit. And then once you start doing that, then maybe you can come back to being a little bit more physical when the opponent starts thinking that, oh, okay, we've got to defend the quick out route here. I think it's a legit question. I think we've had a couple really good ones here, and I like that one.
I think that Notre Dame has a very quality offensive line. I would contend that at the midpoint of the season, it is not performed to probably the expectation, both within the building and certainly from us in the media and the fans as well. I think whether that's the season-long absence of Charles Jagasaw, whether that's moving forward without Ashton Craig, whatever the variables are, I've been a little bit disappointed overall in Notre Dame's offensive line. We haven't seen them just particularly maul guys on a consistent basis. They've had some games where they were a supreme authority in the contest. We have not seen it down in, down out, series in, series out, game in, game out. I think that's the next step for them. This would be a good time because the more you can keep your
Mhm.
offense on the field and USC's offense off the field, the better off you are. We've made a lot of talk about NC State being forced out of its offensive identity. Let's not lose sight of the fact that NC State only got 59 offensive plays and Notre Dame was in the 70s. That's a big time difference. That puts so much pressure on the opposition when the plays are shrunk like that and they have to do so much every time they get a possession that all that does is further amplify the pressure over the course of the game. So, yeah, I don't think Notre Dame is what it expected to be right now on the offensive line, especially the short yardage offensive line. I won't pretend to have the answers as to why that is.
Yeah, I think it's more of a short yardage thing because I mean, if you look,
Yeah, they run the ball well.
yeah, I mean, since Texas A&M, okay, these are the rushing numbers of Price Love per game. Texas A&M 162 yards, 4.6 per carry. Purdue 231 yards, 8.2. Arkansas 143 yards, 5.3. Boise 186 yards, 7.7, and then even with the struggles this past week, it's 152 yards, 4.6. So in those 5 games, the two running backs have combined for 874 yards rushing, 6.6 yards per carry, 15 rushing touchdowns, and that's while having a passing offense that's approaching 300 yards per game. So I think they're getting push. Just
but
not
I think the question is only short yard. I mean, like when you say,
right.
All right, here we go, we're going to run it, I don't think they get push.
When they have to,
but they absolutely have to run it. I don't think they get pushed.
I agree. So maybe it's those tight formations that you're talking about.
Exactly.
Tim.
Spread these guys out, man. Let's run the oop-de-oop on them.
All right, we have a question from Billy Hoyle. Boubacar Traore looks to be 100% back from injury. He has turned into a game wrecker off the edge, coupled with a pretty stout run defense. What is the ceiling for this defensive line? Boy, did he abuse that right tackle for NC State. He had him backpedaling a good portion of the day.
He's having a very good year now, Traore, and you could tell something's a little different. He didn't want to discuss when he felt better. I asked him, was it 2 weeks ago? Maybe it was last week. When did you start feeling yourself? He's like, oh, camp. I was like, all right, sure. But I think he is feeling better now. You could tell the way he plays. I think it just probably not. The one thing he did kind of admit was, oh, yeah, I was sore after practices, after games. He's probably working through that a little. I mean, he is, if they didn't have Leonard Moore on their team, defensive MVP.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's in year 3, so he's a guy that if he keeps playing like this, he'll have a very significant decision at the end of the year. But he is what he's doing is he's becoming a guy that's showing up so much more on tape that opponents have to start paying special attention to him, which probably is why we're seeing a little bit more productivity out of Notre Dame's defensive interior, or a guy like Elijah Hughes, who's starting to show up more and more.
I think Tim Priester, I'm sorry to interrupt for 5 seconds. I think Gabriel Rubio's top 12 Notre Dame player, if not 13. I'm going to do that for Monday Musings. Gabriel Rubio makes more plays per snap. He had 20 snaps in that game. He makes more plays per snap than most of those guys do. I like the way Gabriel Rubio is playing. He needs some consistency, of course, but I like how I think he's playing better than you're about to say. How's that? Go ahead.
Yes, yeah, because I wouldn't necessarily jump on board with what you're saying. Yeah. But look, we all go through the game again. It takes me 5 hours to get through it. It should be 10 because I can't look at everybody all the time. Right. I think he holds the point of attack. I'd like to see him be more of a playmaker like Riley Mills became as the season progressed last year, but he's not Riley Mills. He's not as good as him. Okay. But I do think that he's a guy that you want on the field the majority of the time among the defensive tackles. And you know, fortunately, he's been healthy and has really, really done a nice job of, at worst, holding the point of attack and then occasionally making some plays where he slices through.
I have him for 12 stuffs.
Okay.
Pretty good.
You keep that stat.
Well, one's a sack, but a sack. I mean, sacks are good too, right? We're okay with that. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the sacks. So
that's 2 a game for a guy that's not getting full-time reps per se.
And maybe there's also the desire of Gabriel Rubio is the one guy inside that could be a difference maker when you're playing a playoff team. I'm sure that's there because we've always held that for every time he does something in short snaps, we're always like, they need more Gabriel Rubio.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one guy with the truly legitimate size, and then Onye would be next. If he could play as well in his other series as he does the opening series, he'd be more.
Now that's all I'm gonna notice for the next games. Our next question, Terry Benedict. Last year, this is a good question, and it's probably because I feel the same way. Last year, it took J Love 10 games to reach 100 carries. That's insane. This year, it's taken 6. Sider said he only plays 2 running backs, but are you surprised the other running backs haven't been more involved? And is there any update on Williams? I don't know what he means there, but
well, yeah. Well, I mean, because Williams has been in the brace, and I'm flat out told he's had some very candid discussions with the coaches. He wants to be more involved in the offense. Marcus Freeman, to his credit, said I would be disappointed if every single guy was happy with his role if he didn't want to be more involved. I think it's important for Notre Dame to identify a third back that they can use, whether it's the third or fourth series of the game. They need somebody they can rely on. These guys are all coming off the longest seasons of their career, 16 games. They've played 6, getting ready to be 7, including what will be a 6th straight game on Saturday. You need to, especially if you win this Saturday, you need to find a way to spell Jeremiah Love specifically as much as possible in the month of November, and especially as you maintain college football playoff viability.
There's a downfield pass waiting for Aeneas Williams to catch, isn't there? I mean,
that's the one thing, because he does still have something on his arm. So does that inhibit him in the throw game? Sure.
Yeah, but I remember talking to him. I think it was this preseason, and he really he feels like you get me on a linebacker, and I'm going to win that. I'm going to win that battle. So there might be an opportune time to slip him in now. I'm not sure how the opposition would react to seeing him in the lineup. They probably would think it's more about being a blocker in the backfield. But this is Jaywan Sider. I mean, that's his MO. So to say surprised, I can't say that we're completely surprised because we knew where his mindset was, where his head was with regard to rotations in the backfield coming into the season. But the number of carries are way up for both of those guys. Now, maybe there's some games coming up here after this week. You have the bye week. There could be some games here coming up where you don't have to get them, 28 carries between them. But you need them now. You're not gonna be skimpy on carries if you need them this week.
2 things. Number 1, congratulations to Terry Benedict, because I had to double take reading that. I just went through this. Thank God you guys were talking. 103rd carry was the Virginia game. Are you kidding? On senior day was his 103rd carry.
Yeah.
And he had 16 carries that day. He went into senior day with 87 rushes. That's amazing. And number 2, I do not like Sider's method of not using a third back.
Well, I don't.
I don't care if I'm wrong or not. I don't like it.
No, I tend to agree with you. I don't think it's necessary. Really.
Here, yes, right. I agree. I don't think it's necessary here. At Notre Dame, I don't think it's necessary with Aeneas Williams.
I agree. I do agree with that.
Final question. Spot welder. This is another good one because I think, pretty sure you asked this before this broadcast. This is a broadcast. It's something like that. Spot welder says, your predictions are usually anchored by the Vegas point spread. Is this week an exception? Why is Notre Dame a 9-point favorite? And he wonders, is there anything to do with like an outsized home field advantage due to travel and time zones? We know Lincoln Riley does not like to travel to the Midwest, especially on Fridays or Thursdays or any other days. Recent series history, injuries and depth for USC. I don't think that's it. Other.
Ooh, that's a really good question. I saw it yesterday, whenever this morning at 8.5. I don't think it's good. I think it could get down into the 7.5 range, right? Not sure it dips under 7. What is the reason?
I don't know the reason. They looked terrible against Illinois. They did look, but they've looked good in other games, though. It's like that's a weird.
Maybe Notre Dame is still the more disciplined football team. Maybe the odds makers don't trust USC's defense completely against Notre Dame's offense in Notre Dame Stadium. It's an excellent question. I don't know that injuries. I mean, I know injuries have hit USC at running back, but King Miller, I'm sure, can handle the bulk of it. It's a great question. I'm interested to hear what you guys think.
I was doing some quick research on that last question from Terry Benedict because that is fascinating insight.
It's crazy.
I mean, my God, the guy just Wally pipped me. Like next week,
Yeah.
we'll have Terry Benedict instead of my butt on the podcast. Shout out Terry Benedict, whoever the hell you are. Good job. But because of that, I just researched Singleton and Allen combined for almost exactly 400 carries last year for Penn State. So I know we've talked about it, but hearing that number, I think just eviscerates any notion to the contrary that Jawan Sider doesn't just absolutely feed two
Yeah.
beasts. And I don't know, like, there's no worse purgatory than being the number three
Oh
running
my
back
God!
in
To your
Jawan Sider's
point, yeah.
backfield. I
To
mean,
your point, Tim,
400
why is
carries
that
for those
necessary?
dudes. 400 carries for those dudes.
I mean,
Go ahead.
they're really good. So, man, they probably didn't have Aeneas Williams, but Aeneas Williams is very good. Huh? I mean, keep feeding two, you won't have a third next year. That's how you got to look at it, right?
Yeah, they had a scholarship back at number 3 last year. I'll say that. So, and 4. This last question here from Spot Welder. I think I think the biggest thing is the travel and the fact that USC has not performed well on the road. Recent history, they try to not take that too much into account. That's what I've always been told when setting the odds that last year doesn't really factor into this year. It's all about the personnel. What I would say is USC's 2 road games this year has not looked particularly good. It really struggled to put away Purdue, so you've got already a common opponent there. And then you also saw USC lose in midday at Illinois. And just didn't play particularly super well in either of those games. I would note, because I was doing some checking on this, I wondered if USC, some in the past, much like Stanford, has flown in on Thursdays. Because this is the night game, USC is not coming in until Friday. So they're coming in, they're treating it, now that they travel to the Midwest so much more often, it's my understanding they try to, quote, treat it much more like a business trip. They're in Friday evening, go to the game, fly home immediately after.
Tim, I know the mindset this past weekend was you want USC to win because Notre Dame doesn't play any other ranked teams, and you want it to help your resume if you beat them. And I understand that, but imagine a USC team coming in here that lost to Michigan. Maybe
they rallied pretty well for Notre Dame.
Yeah, so, I know. But having lost 6 times in a row to Notre Dame in Notre Dame Stadium, maybe it'd have been better if you just had them a little bit less single-minded coming into Notre Dame Stadium. But look, it is what it is. They're 5-1. They're going to be feeling really good about themselves. Mekhi Lemon, to me, is the driving force on this team. I mentioned it. I mean, I think he's one of the most competitive opponents that Notre Dame has faced in recent years, or I can't say ever because that's
that would be an overstatement no matter what. It would definitely be an overstatement.
I tend to say things like that, but love his competitiveness, and I think that that guy is a driving mindset force for this program. But I was just wondering if maybe it'd been better if they lost and then USC could fall back into recent USC ways of thinking. But they won; they'll be ready. I can't wait for this game. I've spent an entire lifetime looking forward to Notre Dame USC games, and this is a big one, man. This is going to be great.
We'll be back on Thursday, October 16th with our USC game preview. Before we send you on your merry way, though, we want to remind you there's an ongoing 60% off yearly VIP membership deal at irishillustrated.com. You can use the coupon code Irish60. This deal does end, however, on October 15th before we see you again. That's Irish60 for 60% off annual VIP membership at irishillustrated.com. For Tim Priester and John Bryce, I'm Tim O'Malley. Thanks for watching and listening. Irish Illustrated Insider.